we begin with prayers, and the prayers are in Tibetan mainly because it's very difficult to get agreement across the United States on the English versions. So it's just nice to know them in Tibetan so that when you walk into any Tibetan Buddhist center in the whole United States, you can join in on prayers. But it's also very good to know what they mean and why we're doing them. So the idea with the first one, the mandala, is that we do this gesture, which you can have if you don't know, you can have someone show you. And it's the whole world. And the idea is that you're offering up the whole world in a transformed state. It's a world without war, without poverty, without oppression, without people harming each other, without living beings have to kill and eat each other for nourishment, which we just assume has to be that way. But what if it didn't? What would our ideal world look like? So we offer this to our spiritual guides, to our mentors, to those who inspire us. And it's out of appreciation. It's out of a request, really, for them to come and be here and stay and teach us. And in Buddhism, it's always good to remember that we're not supposed to teach without a request, right? We can't go and knock on doors and proselytize and say, hey, let me tell you about the Buddha, man. And it's not a bad thing to do that. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that the Buddha actually gave the instructions. You have to be asked to teach. So this also serves as a request for the teachings to come. And then we go for refuge. And refuge is this idea that, it's like that image of if you're a kid in the sandbox and some bigger kid comes along and they're tormenting you, you want to go for shelter, you go for refuge, you go to someone who can protect you and help you. And so that's what refuge is, and we're taking refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha. The Buddha is the one that shows us the way, an alternative to the normal life that we might feel stuck in. The Dharma is the practice of that way, the realization of it in our own lives, in our own hearts. We put it into practice, and we see and we taste that our lives can be a little bit different. And then the Sangha is a community of people who have realized that, who have put it into practice, who have gotten the results, and then also those spiritual friends that we're on the path with together. Welcome. Come on in.
Sorry to be late.
No problem. We're just starting. So, do you want to lead, Heather? Puki jukshe meto tram rira blinchi nende kempadi sange shindu lite ulwagi drokun nanda shinna chupasho idam guratnam mandalakan niryatayami shudan soki choknam la jangshu bardu dakni kyapsuchi daki chinyen gipe tsunam ki drola penchir sangye drupasho shudan soki choknam la jangshu bardu dakni kyapsuchi daki chinyen gipe tsunam ki drola penchir sangye drupasho shudan soki choknam la jangshu bardu dakni kyapsuchi daki chinyen gipe tsunam ki drola penchir sangye drupasho. So I want to welcome everyone, and again, my name's Amie. I have been teaching here in Sacramento going on 4 or 5 years now. I think it's kind of amazing. And we actually started in Sacramento at the Yoga Seed. It was about 4 years ago. And then about a year and a half, 2 years ish, we moved to Riversong here. And so it's been a delight to be in this space. It's nice to be in a space that's just set up for meditation. And there's a lot of wonderful ongoing things here. So I always invite people to check out the boards. And I've been practicing since I was 20, which is a long time now. And my background is a combination of Zen practice and Tibetan Buddhist practice. And I've been in the Gelugpa Tibetan tradition for the last 16 years now. That's a quick view of my background. I'm also retired, but I'm a nurse midwife, so sometimes I bring in little things, snippets from that. And I'm a mother, so I've done a lot of my Buddhist practice in the context of a family life, and as well as in monastic settings. So I've got all of that as my background. And what I'd like to do is, first of all, just have you say hello to each other and introduce yourselves to someone you don't know and someone close by. Say hello. And then what I'd like to do is just go around the room and hear your names and a little bit about your practice life and your interest. Starting with you. It can just be tiny. It doesn't have to be a huge big thing, but just introduce an introduction about.
And I don't know. I live here in Sacramento, and I've been practicing for about 5 years, starting with Amie when she started teaching here about 5 years ago. Is that short?
Thank you.
I'm Shauna, and I really don't have a practice.
Okay, great. Well, welcome.
Did you know about this from the meeting?
From the meeting.
Wonderful. Cool. Welcome.
I'm Heather, and I started practicing for yoga when I did my yoga teacher training in 2008, and then I've been studying with Amie for, I don't know, I guess it's been 4 or 5 years. That's it.
My name is Jay, and I've been meditating and practicing for 4 years.
My name's Gillette, and I've been practicing on and off for I guess about 4 years now, but I've been meditating off and on for way longer than that.
You get to the point where you don't want to say.
Yeah, it's been a long time. Probably before a lot of you have been alive.
Thank you and welcome.
Thank you.
My name is Irma, also Irma, can be pronounced Irma, and I'm a rock singer, artist, activist, retired state worker, and I got sick about 2 years ago when I retired, and it was something to do with my immune system. I lost my balance, everything was wrong with me. And on top of all of that, I lost my mind. I didn't know how to heal myself, and nobody else could either. So I started yoga 2 years ago, or almost 3 now. First at the yoga seat, and then I moved to Raja Yoga, and then I met Jay. And he taught me how to sing again. So grateful. And he asked me to come here. And it's really helping me feel confident in my mind.
Wonderful. Thank you. Welcome.
My name is Mark. I've been practicing about 16 years.
Thank you.
My name is Ryan. I've been practicing for like 3 years or so with Amie. She's pretty awesome.
You know, what immediately came to mind is takes one to know one. It's like when you're a kid, right? So sweet. Thank you.
My name is Lauren, and I've mostly been practicing mindfulness meditation, but only really when I need it and I'm in crisis, and I would like to cultivate a more regular practice.
Fabulous. Great. Thank you. So welcome again. And I just wanted to say a little bit about what I'm imagining the format to be, which I just realized I probably need a watch here so that I keep track of time a little bit better. But the idea is that we'll spend an hour and a half together for the next 6 weeks on Tuesday nights. And that we'll do about a half hour of meditation, about a half hour of me talking at you and giving some information about the path. And then about a half hour of discussion. And some evenings that might be more very delineated, and others it might be a little bit more free form. Okay? I love this material. I'm so excited to be able to revisit it because it's we're actually following up on a fabulous class that Lama Elaine just taught. But this material is something you can revisit again and again and again. And it's something that's as relevant for those who have never meditated or just starting on the spiritual path and those who have been on it for 30, 40, 50 years. Seriously, it's something that you can just sink into more and more deeply, and it gives you a platform for starting. When I started in the Tibetan tradition, I didn't start with the LamRim, and I didn't know it. I'd heard this kind of phrase bantied about. And it sounded, you know how the mind sometimes says, oh, that doesn't sound very appealing. I somehow put this in that doesn't sound very appealing category. And then when I finally came around and listened to and heard a LamRim teaching, it blew my socks off. It was just amazing. And one of the things that I love is that LamRim means steps on the path. And we're going to ask, steps on the path to what? The word that I underlined here is path. And that's what blew me away. Because a lot of times we have aspirations, we have a heart's desire, we have something that's calling to us, but we don't know how to get there, right? We don't know what steps to take. We don't know what to do first, what comes next. And you can just kind of swim around lost for a lot of years. So there's something, when you get a path that's really exciting. And when that path actually has been used and tried and works, and you see that in your own life and in the lives of the others, then it gives you this confidence that it can carry you even beyond maybe where you can see, like it could even carry you around the bend if you're hiking. You trust, literally, the path is going to continue. It doesn't just stop when you get around the bend, hopefully, usually. We were in India recently, and I went on a little path just up in the Himalayas, and it looked really interesting. And so I went off from the group, the people we were with, and I said, I just need to go explore. And I went around, and right there was a guardian monkey around the corner. I came face to face with him. I said, okay, this is your territory, I'll go home now. So you never quite know what adventures you're going to have on the path, right? Like the path is there to take, but that's my adventure on that particular path. You're going to each have your own experience, even though we take the same path, right? Even though many people walk it. So, path to what, right? Then that's the first question, is path to what? Why have a spiritual life? Right? What's the purpose? Where is it that we want to, quote unquote, get to? What are we taking the path to? Ideas? Enlightenment. That's always a pretty fancy word.
Path to total freedom.
Pardon?
Total freedom
Total freedom. Freedom from what?
from cyclic existence.
What does cyclic existence mean?
Repeating your mental experience.
Pardon? Repeating,
Cycle of your mental experience.
repeating your mental experiences. All of your mental experiences?
No, it's the suffering mental experience.
The suffering mental experiences. Okay, so we want to keep the good ones. The suffering ones we don't. Okay. So, freedom from basically
But
our
I think
suffering.
all mental experiences, if under ignorance, is in one way or other lead to suffering. So, as an enlightened person, if I get rid of all my mental cyclic experience, it is naturally a path to the good ones, I think. I don't know. I didn't want to.
Yes. Okay, but yes.
So to be happy,
To be happy.
because the path is. The path just is.
Mm-hmm.
And it always is.
Mm-hmm.
And so to be happy on the path probably means a lot of different things, you know, to have faith and to have patience and to surrender, you know, that all means the same thing.
Yeah, there's a lot of components to it that we can put on it, can think about. So happiness and the end of suffering, right? Happiness and the end of suffering. We've got two big components here. You know, to bring it down to earth, think about, like, why are you here tonight, right now? Like, what motivated you to get in the car on a Tuesday night and come?
The hope for knowing.
Pardon?
The hope for knowing.
The hope for knowing? And the hope for knowing what?
Knowing the direction that you're going in life. you
Cool.
know?
Mm-hmm. So the direction, like, where you're going in life, where you're headed.
I feel like my mind is not working today, but I feel like just having to, like, keep practicing the tools to, like, control my mind in a way that I feel like I have control of, like, what I'm thinking about and how I'm kind of working with, you know, my day and my reality, and making sure that, or, you know, being able to practice so that I'm not overtaken by mental afflictions and
Yeah.
feeling out of control. Just a good, solid, like, path and practice.
Yeah. Thank you.
I think, like, for me, like, faith has something to do with it, because a lot of times, like, I don't feel like going.
Mm-hmm.
And I know, just like with my yoga practice, I'm like, you know, I don't want to do it today, right? I like my practice. But then, like, I know because I've come before, and, like, I'll get inspiration, or I'll just feel really good afterwards, you know? So I know, like, chances are I won't regret it. Like, I don't think I've ever come in, like, regretted it,
Yeah.
you know? So, faith that, like, it's what I need, even though I might not feel like.
Yeah, so coming for something bigger and that might not be an immediate gratification that's in your mind right now, but you trust that you're going to be happier, really, or inspired, or something positive.
To have tools to escape the distraction, to be able to have an option, like I've been learning how to eat Ayurveda style, and so then before I eat something, I think, how did I feel last time I ate this, and then what can I do that will make me feel good.
Great, yeah. And that's thank you, the tools. And that kind of echoes, I think, what you were saying too, the tools. Like, how is it that we face the moment-to-moment things that come up in our life? How do we respond? How do we react? Can we find a way to go through just our everyday life in a way that's maybe less stressful, more happy making for ourselves and others. So what I think we begin to feel and see and taste is that there is a human potential that each one of us has, that maybe there really is something that's available to us that's more than eating and sleeping and chasing after the latest Apple products. I heard that the Apple Watch will be out April 10th, so we'll see how that goes. But it's more like if we go beneath that, if we can kind of go underneath that, what is our true heart's desire? What is our longing in our heart, really, ultimately? And I think it's sparked with this understanding that we can feel it within us, that we're born with this incredible potential. And I always think and remember that most of you are closer to childhood than I am in a number of years, but I still can remember that magical feeling of being a child. You know what I mean? And you come out and you feel like there's something special, right? Like life has something special. And there's something magical. And there's some magical bigger purpose for my being here. Yeah? And then I could say that we start to lose touch with that. And we lose focus. We don't quite know what that is or what that was. And we start to do what we're kind of guided to do through school, through parents, through society. And yet that little longing is often still in us. And now what's so cool to me is that psychology is studying that. They're studying it in positive psychology and finding out what is that longing, what is it that we have, and finding that we have a potential for genuine happiness, for a sense of greater purpose. We can fulfill that. We can actualize that. We can pay attention to it and grow it. And we can deeply connect with love, with other beings, humans and non-humans both, in a very meaningful way. So when we say happiness, I like to distinguish between two types of happiness. And I heard that already come up in here. And one we might call mundane happiness. That's one term that it's often called, is mundane happiness. And again, this is not a value judgment. That's not saying that this is not something worthy of having or experience. What mundane happiness arises on outside circumstances. Sometimes what scientists call positive stimulus, right? So what does that mean? It means you might go to a great meal and feel happy. You might go to a great movie and feel happy. You have a friendship with a child or a lover or a partner or a pet. And these are usually based on sense stimulation, intellectual stimulation, the mind, or having a discussion. It can be sense stimulation. But it's something that really arises on the outside conditions, the circumstances. And again, I'm not trivializing it. It's not a trivial thing. The thing about this is it sometimes is linked to what we call gratification, and gratification can come also, is it always wholesome? Not always. We can take unwholesome happiness or gratification, say when we delight in the misfortune of others. And we do that sometimes in very seemingly small ways, like we were driving back from LA and there was an accident and you see everybody stopping and there's kind of this interest, it's almost a delight and oh, what happened? An excitement, So we can look at, does gratification always make us happy? What is it like when we have this kind of mundane happiness? What are the things we notice about it?
It's conditional.
Pardon?
It's conditional.
It's conditional. Yeah, it depends on these outside conditions.
It doesn't last.
It doesn't last. Like you have a great meal and then it's over, right? And part of conditional is if it's not there. where's our focus? How do I get it? How do I make it happen? Another thing about it is that often, what are we willing to do to make it happen or to get it? You know, sometimes it's not such a good thing for ourselves or other people. So the wisdom traditions of the world, and what I mean by wisdom traditions is I mean like Christianity and Buddhism and Judaism and Socrates and, you know, all the wisdom traditions. What they talk about is, both East and West, is there's a recognition that there's a whole different bandwidth of happiness, you know, a whole different bandwidth open to us. And it's not a stimulus coming from outside. It's not a type of gratification that you get when conditions, you can get what you want, right? But it's a type of wellspring that comes when you cultivate your own heart, your own mind, your own life, right? And it's what non-Buddhists might call when you cultivate your soul. I think that's what it used to be called. And the idea is that when happiness is cultivated from within you, it's what you would call genuine happiness. It's human flourishing. And it has to do with what you bring to the world rather than what you get from the world. And the nice thing about genuine happiness is no one can take their scalpel, right, or their knife or their whatever and get in there and separate you from what's making you happy, because it's coming from you. It's how you're coming to the world. And that also means then it's not dependent on our resources or what we have, to a point. Although I want to say that I've met some of the really poorest people that I've met in some of the worst circumstances are the happiest people I've ever met. I mean, and I am not saying that I condone poverty or circumstances that human beings have to live in that are very difficult. I'm just saying the idea that we might have that our outside circumstances have to determine our happiness are suspect when you meet the happiest people in the worst conditions. And I mean conditions beyond belief, you know? And then when we meet really rich people, I don't know if any of you may have had the opportunity to work with or be around people who are extremely wealthy. I happen to have an uncle who was early on in the film industry and one of the founders of the Academy and helped bring the, what was it called, Technicolor film over to the United States and get it working in the film industry. So I was in awe as a child because they lived in Beverly Hills, you know, and they had a maid, and they had a cook, and they had a mansion with a swimming pool. And he was one of the most unhappy people I ever met or ever knew. You know, he was paranoid and miserable and very, very unhappy. And I could see it even as a child, you know. So, yes, you know, it's good to have things. It's good to be comfortable. It's good to have our needs met. It's also very important, we're saying when we're looking at a spiritual path, what we're talking about is that there is a way that we have a potential to be happy that's not dependent on our outside circumstances. And that's a type of freedom. You know, when we understand that, it's a type of freedom. And it's exciting. And it's really then to know, well, how do we get there? You know, what's the path? There's a wonderful poem by Hafiz that I love. It says, "Light will someday split you open, even if your life is now a cage. For a divine seed, the crown of destiny, is hidden and sown on an ancient fertile plain that you hold the title to. Love will surely bust you wide open into an unfettered, blooming new galaxy, even if your mind now is a spoiled mule. A life-giving radiance will come. The friend's gratuity will come. Look again within yourself. For I know you were once the elegant host to all the marvels in creation. From a sacred crevice in your body, a bow rises each night and shoots your soul into the sacred. Behold the beautiful drunk singing one from the lunar vantage point of love. He is conducting the affairs of the whole universe while throwing wild parties in a treehouse on a limb in your heart."
That's beautiful.
You know, You know, the poetry often expresses these things so much more. So we are going to explore the path, the steps on the path to enlightenment. I don't know if you ever did this as a kid, but we used to make treasure maps. Did you ever do this for each other?
Yeah.
Like you make treasure maps, and then you'd bury treasure, and then you'd leave clues for each other. And I often think of the steps on the path to enlightenment are like those treasure maps that we made when we were kids. LamRim is a category of meditation and practices that was started in Tibetan Buddhism with Lord Atisha. He was begged by the Tibetans to come from India because Buddhism had been in Tibet, and they had lost it because of a cultural, political revolution. But it had been going on, continued on underground, and then it began to flourish, and the emperor and various other people in power in Tibet went and they said, who is the best scholar and practitioner in all of India? And they went and investigated and found it was Lord Atisha. And they begged him to come. And the king of the area where he lived was saying, no, we don't want to let him go. You know? So they had to, Tibet had to promise to only borrow him and bring him back. And Lord Atisha came, and he wrote the first organization of all the steps that we might practice on a spiritual path, which I would say it doesn't matter whether you call it Buddhist or not. You have to get these spiritual paths, steps, you know. And he organized them into this system, and he said, all of those people that I am aware of who practice this can realize their inner potential. And those who have realized their inner potential, this is what they practiced. You know, these were the components. It's kind of like you can't bake a cake without certain ingredients. It's not going to be a cake. It's very basic, same thing. There are certain things you can leave out in a cake. If you want vanilla cake, you don't put in chocolate, right? But there are also things that you can't leave out. Right? So the LamRim can be very essential, just the very essential points. We'll go through it as a meditative practice, so it's going to be a visualization, which I'll talk about. Or you can begin, the beautiful thing is you can unpack each step, and we could have 3 classes or 4 classes or 5 courses on each step. In this course, what we're going to do in the next 6 weeks is an overview that will give you a taste of the essential ingredients. And when I mean overview, I mean you'll learn all the steps on the path, I like to say from A to Z. Now, when you practice these steps, when you really meditate and work with them and go deeper with them, what you'll find is you'll start to find profound changes in your own heart and your own mind. That is the purpose of it. There are 2 ways that we can study and practice and learn this meditation. One is going through the steps from A to Z. The other one is from Z to A, right? Just like, again, when you're a kid, you go A, B, C, D, you say the alphabet forward, and then you challenge each other. Can you say it backwards? You know? And we're going to learn it, we're like playing scales, right? You do forward and backwards and up and down. So we're going to learn it both ways. Really what I'm going to do is mix it up, to be honest. So what we're going to do is we're going to start, though, with the meditation on where we want to end up. And, where this path leads us to. And we can call it enlightenment, give it a big fancy word. I like to think of it, oh gosh, this example sticks in my mind. Do you guys remember Michael Jordan?
Yes.
Okay. I just thought, am I old enough that Michael Jordan looks like would be?
I thought you were going to say someone totally obscure.
So, I remember this kid, he's dribbling his basketball, and he's going, all right, I'm Michael Jordan, I'm going to make the shot, I'm going to leap, and I'm Michael Jordan. And you could see he was really into it. Like he wasn't himself anymore. He wasn't Stephen on a 9-year-old kid or a 12-year-old kid on the basketball court in the school playground. In his mind, he was Michael Jordan, right? And he's visualizing himself as Michael Jordan, and he's getting into it. And then you see his whole body change and his whole exuberance change, and he's really into it. And that's taking the result as the path. Right? Instead of saying, I'm Steve, and I'm sitting here dribbling the ball and practicing and trying to make the shot, and oh my God, I missed it again. He's going, no, I'm Michael Jordan, and really into it until he's embodying it. And then we could say, it even helped him in his game. Like that, making the shot. Right? So that's kind of what we're doing on this way of taking the meditation. What is enlightenment? I wanted to just read again this definition from Geshe Loden, a wonderful Australian, a Tibetan who moved to Australia, and he passed away. But he left us amazing teachings and writings and inspiration and guidance. And his definition of enlightenment is an enlightened mind is a mind which is filled with the greatest, most far-reaching love. It's completely free of ignorant hatred, ignorant attachment, and ignorance itself. Okay? It's fused with wisdom and compassion. It's an unstoppable wellspring of happiness, peace, and contentment. It's filled with boundless joy and no limitations to creating beneficial circumstances, creating that joy, meaning for others. Huh? How's that sound? Perfect. You're like, sign me up. Okay, so let's do our meditation. If you don't have a meditation practice, if you haven't meditated before, that's okay. This is a visualization practice. Before we start, it just occurs to me I should say something about visualization. Some people think, wait, I can't visualize. So just think of a milkshake, chocolate milkshake. Does chocolate milkshake come to mind? Okay. Think of your mother.
Jay's drinking it.
You're drinking it. He's really into visualization. If you need tips, see Jay. He'll help you make it really alive and vivid. Just bring to mind your mother. Yeah, that's visualization. It can be as simple as that, and it can be as elaborate as a movie playing in your mind. Some people, I am not a person who gets very elaborate visualizations going, but I still find them very powerful because for me, as I go through it, it's more of a feeling state. Sometimes insights come. Other people I've talked to, I have one person that I work with, you just say the word visualization to her and a whole world pops open and it's got flowers and imaginary creatures. It's like I'm listening to her going, wow, I'd like to be in your mind for a few minutes and see what that's like. So visualization is just, don't worry about whether you're doing it correctly or not, let it come. The important thing about doing these kind of meditations are to be very comfortable, alert, and relaxed. You can do it sitting in a chair. You can do it on a meditation bench. You can do it lying down, although the problem, I don't want to say problem, challenge with doing supine lying down meditation might be snoring, exactly. Because what do we do usually when we're lying down? Sleep, okay. But it doesn't mean it's not it is actually a great meditation posture. So find a posture that for you is comfortable, relaxed, and alert. You can start with your eyes closed if you would like. Some people find that helps with visualization. And begin by taking Just a few deep breaths in and out. And you're settling your breath in its natural state. Bringing your awareness to the felt sensation of breath in your belly. Withdrawing your awareness and your senses from the sounds, sights, feel of the room into the domain of your body. Letting go of any thoughts of past worries that you might have left over from the day, or thoughts about the future, allowing your mind to rest contentedly in the present moment. Now, in your mind's eye, you can see yourself looking, imagining a beautiful, vast, big, large courtyard at the end of a building. It might be an old adobe ranch style, adobe walls around, or whatever you imagine it to be. But the courtyard houses a large, luscious garden. So you're seeing the courtyard. You see the garden and you walk into the garden. You notice that it has 4 streams flowing into a large pond in the middle of the garden. Begin to walk towards the pond. Noticing the beautiful flowers, the trees, the green grass, smelling the fragrant roses. And as you walk towards the pond, you notice something interesting. Animals at peace with each other. You see like a lion and a lamb lying down, head resting on each other's shoulders. Dogs and cats dozing in the sun together. Imagining other animal pairs like this, every one of them at peace, in harmony. Might hear the sounds and the calls of birds. And as you walk, you notice the birds have no fear. as you approach the island, as you approach the pond, you see in the center a tiny island. And there's a path on to the island that leads under a beautiful trellis archway over a bridge. And you see in the middle of the island a mossy raised platform. And there someone is sitting in meditation. You slowly approach them. You look more closely. And you see your face. It's you, but somehow different. Because you're looking at your own future awakened self. Your future self as an enlightened being, radiating far-reaching love, total happiness, peace, contentment. Your body is at ease, full of a quiet, happy energy, beautiful, shining, utterly free of tension, no aches, no pains, just this sweet physical ease, calm pleasure. Imagining what your Buddha self will look like. They say the body becomes different. It's more like made of light substance more than matter substance. It tends to glow. And then you begin to imagine what it will feel like to be that future enlightened self. Taking some time to feel, how will it be to be perfectly happy? Nothing that life throws you will create anxiety or fear. Imagine a mind that isn't just jumping day to day unhappy thoughts. But rather at ease, content, and loving mind. No anxiety about being good enough, about imperfection of appearance or behavior or life, style or circumstances. then imagine as you're sitting there with a body that feels joy, with emotions of happiness, with the feelings of pleasure and bliss, that you begin to feel the great, far-reaching love in your heart for all living beings. And that great love and joy allows you, even while you're just sitting there, to help countless beings in countless situations in countless ways. And here you can really let your imagination run wild. You don't have to stick to any random laws of what you think is possible, but it's like you're in an amazing movie with any special effects, and so you can be a dog that rescues the child from the flooded rivers. You can be a tree that stops a car from going off a cliff. You can be a person who gives a warm smile to someone next to them on a bus, knowing that you've just saved them from feeling completely alone all day. Just imagining any circumstances that come to your mind where you're helping others. And if you feel too limited by being on this planet only, they now say there are countless galaxies and the probability of many life forms. So imagine traveling to other planets on the power of your love for others, your desire to help them, to bring them happiness and relieve all their suffering. And then, again, as we are there, seeing ourselves as the enlightened being we will be, that we must become, that is our birthright. Begin to feel that love glow in our heart, getting brighter and brighter, until it begins to radiate like a warm sun, sending warm rays of light, love, wisdom out in all directions. And as it touches the hearts of other living beings, their burden is lightened. They feel the caring, the love. They don't know why, but they feel happier, more at ease, more content, more joyous. And then you bring your awareness back into your heart, and the rays of light follow. And sit for a moment enjoying being a happy, joyous mind, heart. Being love, being a body at ease. Seeing the garden around you at peace. With all beings tending to each other, caring for each other. And then slowly release this meditation, release the visualization coming back into this body, in this room. As you're ready, you may want to wiggle your fingers and toes and open your eyes. So, any comments? How is that?
That's rad. I don't know, something I don't think about that often, you know, meditations and practices, but just like hanging out with like your enlightened self. I don't know, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And so relaxing.
One of the things that can come up are the mind's, all the mind's, what's the word? Reluctance to believe that this is possible, or I don't know if anyone had that happen, but sometimes all the reasons that say, oh, this couldn't be possible, or this couldn't be true, or you couldn't really do that. You know?
In a way, kind of just like not being able to hold myself there. It's like I didn't have, I didn't have, what is it that holds us to the earth?
Stability, grounding,
Gravity.
gravity. Uh-huh.
Like I would just like, I would disappear, and then I would, like I would force myself back and I'd reappear.
Mm-hmm.
I guess just practice.
That's practice. That's called lack of meditational stability, and it comes with practice. And the way you practice with any meditation object is exactly that. Bringing your mind back over and over and over again. You know, and each time you bring it back, that's success. That really is success. One thing we know from a lot of positive psychology now, and that Buddhists have known for centuries, you know, is that when we do this, we make the experience more available. Sports psychologists have learned this over the years. I love that science is discovering this, quote unquote, because everything that science discovers with the mind, like, yeah, the Buddhists have known that for 25,000 years, right? Or 2,500 years. How many zeros does that have in numbers?
A zillion years.
A billion years, that's it. But one way to think about it is if you did this every day, then something unhappy-making arose in your daily life based on certain ways of psychology that we've some of us have studied and that is becoming more popular. As they talk about it, it's kind of like files, you know, if you have a files system on your desktop, either computer or real files, because I still work with real files. So when I work with real files, the ones that I use a lot, where am I going to put them?
Not around my desk.
Right around the desk, where they're very accessible, right? And that's exactly what the psychologists say, is the more that you use a file in your mind, the more accessible it is, so that when you reach for it, like when I reach for a file, I'm automatically going to be reaching, and there's the one that I use the most, yeah? And so they're saying the same as this with this type of practice, so that you encounter an unpleasant person. If you've been doing this practice quite a bit, what's available to you in a new way will be a response of love or compassion or a presence. It's very simple, you know. So that's by doing the visualization, we actually create the causes for it to happen, to come true, in the way that it will. It won't be exactly the same as a visualization, but. So why don't we take a 5-minute break, and then we'll come back and we'll come to the LamRim meditation from the other side. And there's tea and some snacks.
Turn the air conditioning off.
Yes, we can turn that off. I'm actually going to turn it up a couple of degrees, but not all the way off because it was getting a little too hot. So I'm trying to hit the sweet spot.
Okay.